I'm tired of explaining what the joke is.
This is what you asked for. Fire in the sunrise, ashes raining down.
Hey YouTube, what is going on? My name is Andrew, aka the Black Dragon. This is Black Dragon Studios, and I'm back with another video for you guys today. In today's video, I'm not going to be doing gaming for once. I'm just going to be chatting with you guys on my experience with vaping, electronic cigarettes, over the last 7 years, and just smoking in general, like nicotine in general. I'm going to just tell you guys a little bit about my story and my thoughts about vaping from a person that has actually had a lot of experience with this, you know. And this message isn't really being endorsed by any, you know, anybody. I'm just doing it, you know, just because I thought that sharing this might get out to at least one person, you know, or hopefully more, obviously, but, you know, if it could help at least one person, you know, then I would be happy, you know. So basically, I'm going to share with you guys my stance on vaping. I don't think it's healthy. I think it serves its purpose as a quitting smoking mechanism, but as a recreational thing, I think it's dangerous, just like any other drug. I don't believe that nicotine is healthy either. I believe it's very addictive, and I'm going to share with you some points in this video as to why I think that, both from a subjective and objective point of view. So yeah, let's go back all the way to when I first started smoking. Was probably when I was 11 years old. I started smoking. You know, I was a bad boy. I was honestly probably, yeah, well, 100%. I was more bad when I was a kid than I am as an adult. I used to get myself into a lot of trouble with drinking, underage drinking, and drugs and stuff like that. It was crazy. I lived a crazy life when I was like under the age of 18. I probably did more crazy shit than I ever did when I was an adult. So yeah, smoking, I love smoking. It was like a stress reliever. It made me feel cool. I don't know why. It made me feel older, I guess. And I didn't like, it got made fun of a lot for being small and being like, sounding like a girl. Like I literally sounded like a girl apparently before I hit puberty. I sounded like a girl to a lot of people on the phone. So yeah, I got made fun of a lot. And smoking just kind of helped fix all that stuff. It made me in my own sick mind, it made me appear like someone, you know, who was cool and older, and I viewed people who smoked as cooler than ones who didn't. I don't know why. So yeah, it was more of an image thing than anything at the beginning, but it became very addictive. Not so much to the point where I was spending a lot of money on it, but I would smoke in secret, because obviously I'm smoking underage. I would smoke any chance I really got. You know, any chance I could, I was smoking. And back when I started smoking, this was probably back in like the early 2000s, when smoking was kind of making its exit from indoors to outdoors, where there were still some places in Canada that you could smoke indoors, like in certain restaurants and certain establishments. You could smoke indoors. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see a 12-year-old kid smoking freely in an indoor facility, but it happened. There was times where I remember the funniest shit that I ever remember was back when I used to go snowboarding a lot, and we used to go to this place called Searchmont back in my hometown, back in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. It was just outside the city. And I was in there. I was with my buddy from school. We were in grade school. We were in there. We were snowboarding. We were sitting in the chalet, which is like the lobby for all the skiers and snowboarders and stuff like that. And they had like an open fireplace there. and we were just chilling, kicked back, smoking not smoking a doobie, smoking a cigarette. And the mayor of Sault Ste. Marie looked over at us and he was like, "Boys, you put those out right now." I kid you not, man. It was the funniest. I forget what his name was. It was the funniest shit you could ever imagine. Just randomly, the mayor happened to be there that day, and we were just two 12-year-old kids just chilling, smoking a cigarette indoors at the ski hill. So, yeah, picture that. So my life, smoking became just like a social thing for me. And it turned into a massive, nasty addiction to the point where toward the end of my smoking days, this is probably when I was around 25 years old, somewhere in around there, I was spending roughly about $300 a month on cigarettes. You may not think that you have a problem at the beginning. It's just occasional. You'll tell yourself it's just occasional. I'm not addicted to it. I can quit whenever I want. But nicotine is one of the sneakiest substances in terms of addiction. Many people have attributed it to being harder to quit than cocaine. And I can tell you without a doubt that for me, I have done cocaine and I have smoked cigarettes. I can tell you without a doubt that smoking cigarettes was much harder to kick than snorting cocaine. So, yeah. Moving on from that, bro, like, I haven't smoked a cigarette now in roughly almost 10 years. And I don't miss it at all. The vaping, when I vaped, it was perfect. I got the perfect recommendation for a vape. And I never touched another cigarette ever again after that day. But there was a time before that where I vaped occasionally. And this was when I was smoking / vaping. I would smoke, I would vape, whatever. It didn't really matter. I was vaping more for the fun of it, but I was still a smoker. And I was just trying things out. And I can tell you that there are vapes out there that will not help you quit smoking. What I mean by that is, if you get the right vape, you will quit. You will not have the desire to smoke cigarettes any longer. And not only that, they will actually start to taste kind of disgusting as well after a while. I advocate a little bit for vaping, but I'm more on the side of caution in terms of encouraging people to vape. But I'm definitely 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, against smoking. I believe in the warnings that they say smoking causes cancer, smoking causes respiratory problems, lung problems. I do believe that all those things are true. And smoking cigarettes on a daily basis, I would say, with the studies that have shown, you have a 50% chance of dying way earlier in your life than you would if you didn't smoke. Due to natural causes, of course. So let's go with that information and say that if, I would recommend not to smoke. Yeah, it relieves stress temporarily, and it may make you feel socially equitable in the beginning. But by the end of it, man, I was smoking by myself. I was just smoking all the time. Smoke just to smoke. There was no reason for it. And that was all just starting off from, a cigarette here, a cigarette there, cigarette at a party, cigarette with friends, outside on break in high school. Turns into, I need a cigarette every hour just to feel normal. So. And another thing too, cigarettes affected my work life negatively. They, not being able to focus, not being able to do anything without knowing that I have access to both the cigarette and the time to smoke it, was a big problem for me in my life. Cigarettes stink. That's another thing too. They get all over your clothes, that, it's on your breath. they smell disgusting and nobody enjoys there's a few people that do. I'm sure there's nutcases out there everywhere. But for the most part, people do not enjoy the smell of cigarettes. They're disgusting, they're vile, and it's just not a pleasurable smell. So if you're trying to be in a relationship with a non-smoker as a smoker, it's not going to work, and vice versa. So, unless you can't smell, then you're good to go. But most people are able to smell, and the smell of a cigarette, and also it gets, if you're smoking indoors as well, it gets on your clothes, it gets on your furniture and everything. So if I had to compare vaping to cigarettes, vaping is a lot better in many ways in the short term, for the reasons of it does not get on your clothes. The scent of it does not get on anything. It doesn't really have a bad scent. For most people, some people are a little bit allergic to the aerosols that it does create, but there's no smoke from vaping. It is just vapor. It's just literally, vaporized water in another sense of the word. So, it doesn't really stick on things as smoke would. So that's one positive that we can draw from vaping, is that it doesn't really stink. And as long as you choose the right flavor and aren't going around in public and blowing it in people's faces and stuff like that, like a rude person, then yeah, it's definitely better. 100%. There's no doubt about it. Vaping is better than cigarettes in that manner. In my experience, vaping also has, if you get the right vape and the right quality of vape juice, it has more nicotine. It definitely hits like a Mack truck compared to cigarettes. Nice thing about vaping or cigarettes is capped. The nicotine in cigarettes is capped. You can only get a certain amount of nicotine in a cigarette, and then it's capped. There's no going any higher. You just have to keep smoking and smoking and smoking like a freaking madman in order to get, more nicotine in your system. Whereas with vaping, you can increase the nicotine level as high as, well, it is capped as well. Don't get me wrong. There's a certain limit to how much nicotine you can put in your vape juice due to the restrictions, where you can only buy a certain amount of nicotine per milliliter of, per milliliter. So let's say 20 milligrams per milliliter, which is like the legal limit right now where I live. You can get 20 milligrams, whereas before it used to be 50. I think it used to be 50 or 100. So the amount has significantly gone down, but you can still cram, like, I would say, without, just by estimation, you could probably cram 10 to 20 times more nicotine into your vape juice and into each puff of your vape than you would be able to take off one puff of a cigarette if you really wanted to, which is crazy to think. But it's true. Vaping offers much more nicotine in compared to a cigarette. So there's a second benefit. Because if you're smoking a cigarette, you're addicted to the nicotine. That is why you smoke cigarettes for so long. Long-term smokers will all say the same thing. I'm addicted to it. I can't get away from it. At first you think you can get away from it, but after many years you soon realize it's very obvious that I'm not able to get away from it quite as easily as I thought at first. So, why vaping was created? Vaping was created by some Chinaman for the purposes of quitting smoking. He was a smoker, and he wanted to quit smoking. And he didn't believe that the smoking cessation, he didn't believe that the smoking cessation devices, which means the devices that will help you quit smoking, were sufficient enough. So he wanted to invent, he's an inventor, he invented the first ever vape, which was literally just a pen, a glorified pen that he built into a electronic cigarette, where he was drawing nicotine without all the toxins of tobacco. He was drawing just pure nicotine. He had figured out a way to do this electronically. And from that, evolved into what we know today from vaping as these big frickin', honkin', the size of my hand. And this is a mini one, size of my hand. That we know today as electronic cigarettes or vapes. Now, I started off with pen vapes. I started off with those very vapes that man invented pretty much. And I then evolved my vape apparatus, if you want to call it that, to just upgrading slowly through the classes of vapes and different kinds of mods that you can get and stuff like that. And different tanks, this thing up top here, for those that don't know, this is the tank. This is where all the magic happens. There's a coil in there. Let's just say it's made of steel, just for figurative sake. Okay, it's made of steel. I'm not going to get into the specifics. I just want to keep it very general. And there's a piece of cotton that goes inside that piece of steel. It's a coil. It's wrapped up like a coil. And that coil is attached to the mechanical device inside of the vape, which is battery powered, which will heat up the metal, which will in turn heat up the cotton, which is supposed to have vape juice soaked onto it, which will in turn vaporize that juice and the substances inside that juice, which is quote unquote the nicotine, will go into your lungs. You inhale that into your lungs. And it creates a very similar effect to cigarettes. I think it creates, honestly, for me, mentally and realistically, a better effect than a cigarette when a vape is done properly. But when a vape is not done properly, you'll have a terrible experience. Most people either underdo it or overdo it, meaning they don't get enough nicotine in their hit. They use a vape that's just not suitable for what they're intending to use it for. And they end up throwing it off to the state, just don't want to use it anymore. Or they go back to smoking because the vape wasn't strong enough. Or they use a level of nicotine in their juice that's just not strong enough for the level of nicotine that they're currently smoking. So all these things factored in. I don't really want to get into the specifics of it, but if you're looking to quit smoking, I do highly recommend that you get the right vape for you. And each person is different. And the right kind of vape juice for you, I guess, is the message that I'll say there. And there's all kinds of flavors, from dessert flavors to flavorless to, fruit flavors, candy flavors. There's a flavor out there, I'm sure, for everybody. And they can be a little expensive, but in the end, even the store-bought juices that I started out buying before I moved into do-it-yourself juices, which is where you just make it at home. You buy all the raw ingredients and then you just mix it all together, and it's a lot cheaper. And that's why people do it. And you can also customize your flavors a little more than store-bought juices, which just, they're already made. There's no changes that can be made to them. Unless you want to risk ruining the juice, which I certainly didn't. So I just bought it, and it was a lot cheaper than smoking. So at the beginning, if I'm buying store-bought juices and pre-made coils and all this, I think it cut my cost by around 50% per month, which is still expensive. To say that you're spending $150 after the initial investment, which is quite hefty. You have to buy all of the supplies to start vaping at first, so the initial investment can be quite hefty, around $200 if you know what you're doing. And a lot of people don't. They end up wasting money and stuff like that. So let's say with the wasted money that you spend buying crappy vape gear and vape products and stuff like that, you're going to end up spending between $200 to $300 just to start out, and you'll have everything you need to vape for at least a month, hopefully, if you've done it right. And then from that point forward, you'll probably only need to spend around $100 to $150 a month, and that'll be pretty much just buying vape juice and coils from that point forward. Again, if you're buying pre-made coils, but by the end of it, I had figured out how to make my own coils. How to make my own coils, how to make my own juice, and by the end of it, I think I was spending roughly $300 to $400 a year on vaping, and that is vaping, chain vaping. That means I have my vape in my hands pretty much all day, just vaping whenever I want, and I was cutting the costs by about 80 to 90%. Remember I said I spent $300 a month on smoking? I was smoking a pack a day. This was back when cigarettes cost $10 a pack, okay? And this was 10 years ago, so I'm sure the prices have gone up significantly since then. So, and that was another, determining factor in why I decided to quit smoking, was that I did not want to spend $300 a month anymore on cigarettes, nor did I really even have $300 a month to spend anymore on cigarettes. But it was more just the fact that I just didn't think it was healthy, and I didn't really want to spend that much. Even if I had it to spend, it's like, man, I can think of some other things that I might want to spend this money on, than slowly committing suicide. So I just put that to the side, and I intended to only vape for a short period of time. What ended up happening was I ended up getting hooked on the vape. I ended up getting way too hooked on the vape to the point where I was like becoming this like vape, there's like a social class of vapors. They're just like, it's almost like an art form of sorts, where you're like trying to find, it's almost like partners, but instead you're like finding the perfect vape. You're like on this quest to find the perfect vape store and find the perfect juice, or make the perfect juice and the perfect oils. It's just a weird world of vaping that you don't get with cigarettes. It's like, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to find the cheapest store to buy the cheapest brand of cigarettes. And it's not like that in the vape world. The vape world, it's like science. It's like a lifestyle. And, there's hundreds, if not thousands of different vape stores, hundreds, if not thousands of different types of vapes that you could get, different types of coils you can get, do it yourself, not do it yourself, and all the accessories that are needed to maintain your vape once you actually have it. It's crazy the amount of stuff that I had to learn to basically become a vape expert over the years, just to save myself, even a little bit. I thought it was going to be a little bit of money that I'd be saving. It was a lot. It was to the point where I could continue vaping right now, even if I wanted to. But no, I don't want to. And I'll tell you why. This is getting to be a little more long-winded than I first anticipated. But I think it's important that I cover all my bases here. Yeah, so recently, another thing too is, the studies don't show, okay, about vaping. Like, the studies didn't show long-term back in 1980s and 70s when people were smoking in hospitals and it was normal. Well, it's not normal anymore. And doctors are no longer prescribing cigarettes to their patients anymore for stress relief. Yes, that actually happened. People used to get sometimes prescribed cigarettes back in the day from their family physician, which is crazy to think how things have evolved since that time. But we now have long-term studies on cigarettes, and the writing's on the wall. It's very obvious that smoking is not healthy. So it's not even a matter of arguing if smoking is healthy or not healthy anymore. It's just a matter of trying to make people aware of what they're actually doing and the risks that they're actually taking when they get involved in these types of situations. to make it more clear in their mind so that they can make an informed decision of whether or not they want to do something. Well, for me, the same exact thing for vaping. Vaping is in its early days. We are the pioneer vapors. We have no clue what we're really doing to our body. But as I vaped, I can tell you that I would question it, because what you're doing is you're burning hot metal, first of all. You have no clue what you're actually inhaling into your body. We know damn well now what we're inhaling into our body with nicotine, with cigarettes. We know what we're inhaling into our body. We've managed to figure out all of the 4,000 cancer-causing agents that are inhaled into your body with each cigarette puff. Nicotine's not even the worst of it. Nicotine's just, if it was just pure nicotine, like vaping, quote unquote pure nicotine, which it's not, but it's the closest thing, I think, to pure nicotine that we could get at this time, other than just injecting the shit into our veins with a needle and, not even, foregoing the vape process altogether, which is something I highly advise against. Do not do that. Anyways, getting back on track, okay? You're burning hot metal. You're literally incinerating it and bringing it to the point of vaporization. So, also another thing too is the cotton can go dry and then it burns, and then God knows what kind of chemicals are created through that, chemical reaction when burnt cotton is getting incinerated even more by a hot coil. It's burning. It's thousands of degrees hot. It's not like, until the studies can tell us exactly what is coming out of those materials when we are inhaling into our lungs, you're not inhaling pure nicotine. You're not. You're just not. So, whether you want to believe it or not, or argue about it in the comment section or not, we need long-term studies on this stuff. But I can tell you through my own personal experience that I have had some very significant changes in my breathing from when I quit smoking to when I started vaping. There was a huge increase in my respiratory production, to recently, about 3 months, 4 months ago to a year ago, where I started to experience extreme, I want to say, bubbling sounds in my breathing when I woke up in the morning. It was almost like you could hear it ringing in your ears. It sounded like popcorn. That's the best way I can describe it. It sounds like there's liquid in your lungs, and I don't know how it gets there. One can only imagine the amount of crap that you're actually inhaling along with your nicotine through vaping. But those were on the days I noticed that my coil was getting really black, or my cotton in my vape was getting really black, and it wasn't fresh, and I was just kept vaping it because I was too lazy to change it. And then the next morning I would wake, and I would chain vape heavily those days as well. I would wake up and I would just like need to, like, felt like I needed to like hack something up. You know that feeling when you feel like you need to like cough and like hack something up, but there's just nothing there? Well, that was me. And that would happen almost every day. Then I would cut down on the vaping and it would happen less, but it was still there. Tell me that's not normal. Okay, tell me that I'm only inhaling nicotine when that kind of thing is happening. And now to fast forward to like the last month and a half. The nice thing about do-it-yourself vaping when you're making your own juice is I can control the nicotine level. That's like the best thing about it. I can control the amount of nicotine that I put in, and I decided a month and a half ago, let's just say a month and a half ago, I decided I wanted to quit vaping once and for all. And I got this bright idea. Well, why don't you just start tapering off and putting less nicotine in the juice, and then eventually you'll just hit zero, and then you can just stop. So that was what I did. I put I used to put 6 milligrams, so it would be, a pretty good dose of nicotine. That was my normal everyday amount that I would put in, and then I cut it down to 4.5, and I vaped that for a couple of weeks, and then I put it down to 3, and then for the last 2 weeks or so, I've been vaping 1.5, somewhere in and around there, and yeah, now I'm done. No more vaping. It's been my first full day with no real vaping. I took a couple of hits off it. I finished off my last bottle today, and I can tell you, man, I was irritated. I've been irritated. As I've been tapering off, I was on a very high amount. I would say that the amount that I vaped, if you compared that to the amount of cigarettes I would need to smoke to get that much nicotine per day that I was vaping over the years, especially the last 2 to 3 years, roughly probably 3 packs a day. I'm just guessing, but that's probably what it equated to. So to go from 3 packs a day even to a pack a day is like a huge difference. And then from like a pack a day to a half pack a day, and then from a half pack a day to like nothing. I've been feeling it. I've been feeling the pain. Let me just say that. But I'm really at the point now where most of the time I don't got that like gripping thing, like where's the vape? I can go a couple of hours, 2-3 hours without a vape, whereas before it needed to be like in my hands constantly. If I was in a position to vape, the vape needed to be in my hands 24/7, or I just got this like massive anxiety, like where is it? I need it right now. And I don't get that anymore, But I have been feeling like really like overly irritated about like pretty much everything lately, and it's not good, and I hope that does go away, and I'm sure it will get back to normal. But the one thing that has already returned to me after cutting down on my amount of vaping, I don't vape half as much anymore. And you'd think, well, since you cut down on the amount of nicotine, you would think you would vape more, wouldn't you? Well, no, that's the whole point of the exercise, is to vape less, put both less nicotine and vape less, eventually to the point where I'm not vaping at all. So for the last week, I have maybe been hitting my vape on average once an hour. So going from a chain vapor vaping a full strength to hitting it once an hour at a very, 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 very low dose, like the lowest you could possibly have without it being zero. I basically wasn't even getting anything from it other than a psychological effect of like, oh, here I am vaping again, whoop-de-frickin-do. But I wasn't getting that like throat kick or that feeling that you get after you take a nice hit of a cigarette after not having a cigarette. Attribute it to like your morning cigarette. Your first one of the day is really the only good one of the day. If you're a daily smoker, that's like the best part of your day is the morning cigarette. And that's really the only good cigarette that you'll ever have for the rest of the day. And then the rest of them are all just like, oh, great, here I am smoking again. It's not really enjoyable. You don't get a buzz from it. It doesn't do anything for you. It just makes you feel like shit, smell like shit. And it's just not a good feeling, So anyways, the point I'm trying to make to you is that I'm already feeling the immediate effects. My lungs are no longer crackling in the morning when I wake up. I can breathe normally again, and your lungs will be restored as long as there's not been permanent damage caused by the cigarettes or the vape. Your lungs will restore themselves to a place where they really, it's almost like you didn't ever smoke in the first place, or you didn't ever vape in the first place. And it can happen very quickly. The lungs do heal themselves very quickly. It was the same thing for me when I smoked too. I used to wake up with that morning cough and the nasty like smoker's cough and black tar and shit. in my spit every day, man, when I woke up from cigarettes. And that all was gone within like 2 months. And I could like run. I was doing like 5 kilometer runs and doing gym and stuff like that, which obviously I'm not doing anymore, but I was doing it back in those times because that's what I needed back in those times. And I could do things that I could never do when I was smoking. Shortly after I quit smoking, so it was great, even when vaping. But the long-term effects of vaping and chain vaping and vaping, burnt cotton coils and stuff like that, it does add up, and it does do a number on your lungs. I can say that with most surety, and we don't have studies to show this or prove this, but I can say through my own personal experience that I do not think that vaping is healthy for your lungs when done that way. In a long-term situation where you're chain vaping and it's being you're using cotton that is not fresh cotton, it's burnt cotton sometimes, or it's like charred, meaning it's like not white, it's brown, and not brown because of the juice, brown because it's literally charred from the coil. I'm just trying to be as exact as possible here, okay? And this is a very common situation in vaping. It's not like, oh, you need to, you're just change your coil then, you lazy son of a bitch. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. If you're vaping a chain vapor, you're gonna be vaping charred and or burnt cotton quite frequently. Even if you have a drip mod where you're dripping your juice directly onto the coil, you're still going to get into situations where you're in a dark room and you're not really dripping your coil properly, or like or you're just not dripping it at all because you're just not paying attention. And then all of a sudden you're taking hits off of a dry cotton, and all of a sudden your cotton's burned and it doesn't get unburned. There's no way to like unburn your cotton. You got to replace the cotton and or just continue vaping a burnt coil. And sometimes if the juice is strong enough, honestly, bro, like, you can sometimes barely even notice it, but it is burnt and it does need to be changed. So yeah, like, it's not healthy. I don't think it's healthy to vape, especially with the pre-made coils. The pre-made coils are even worse, the ones that come with cotton and already pre-made coil, because you can't really tell if the cotton is burnt sometimes unless you actually take it out of the unit and inspect it physically, which can take, between 5 and 10 minutes. It's a very messy ordeal, and it's not convenient. The whole point of vaping is for it to be convenient. So to inconvenience yourself by taking it apart and inspecting the parts, and like, people don't do that, man. You know what I mean? People are lazy. We're a lazy society. We want things done instantly, instant gratification. We want things done for us if possible. So that's the whole point I'm trying to make, is that if you're vaping on a regular basis, that's who I'm targeting here. The target audience today is not people who vape occasionally or recreationally. It's people who chain vape and vape very frequently. It's not healthy, okay? I don't care what the studies show, and yes, every person is different, but in the end, we're all human beings and we all have lungs, and it can't be good to be breathing those chemicals into our system. It just can't. So, as a smoking cessation device, I definitely fully support a good vape in the short term, but in the long term, I would recommend considering getting off of it. It's not cool. You're not as cool as you think vaping, okay? It's not cool at all, especially if you're a teenager. You're actually a loser. You're literally a loser. If you're vaping and you're a teenager or you're a child, you're a loser. And you need to like look in the mirror and realize this. You're fucking your life up royally, dude, by doing that stuff. So you look cool in front of your friends. Those are not your friends. Those very people that you think are friends, 5-10 years from now, you're probably not even going to speak to them ever again. And those are the people that you think are your best friends. You're probably never going to see them again. So just take that into consideration, all you young people out there that are thinking that it's cool to be smoking and vaping. It's not. It's really not. when you get to be my age, you realize what's cool and what's not cool. And I'm not going to sit here and, tell you everything that's cool and not cool. But for sure, vaping and smoking is not cool. So not a good look. There's lots of other things that we could be doing with our life, and vaping is not one of them for me. I'm not going to be vaping anymore. I'm happy that I finally was able to get off the vape after I vaped for too long, man. I vaped for like 8 years. I took it way too far. I know way too much about vaping, and I probably honestly could have started my own business if it was legal. I could have started making my own juices and selling them, to other vapors. But in the end, I got lucky because vaping is like flavored vape juice. Selling flavored vape juice is illegal where I am, so it's good that, that's a good thing, actually. I fully support that. As crazy as that sounds, I fully support the whole, the government kind of retracting their initial acceptance of vaping and treating it more like smoking now, where it's it's not as glorified as it once was, and it's actually becoming a considerable threat to our young people. With all of the amazing flavors and smells that vapes do bring sometimes, it also brings a dangerous downside that can't be overlooked, but will be overlooked by young people that don't know any better. So this is just a message for all you people out there today. Just a health warning of sorts, I guess. And that's really all I have to say today. Day one of not vaping, not smoking. In the last, it's been too long. I don't even know how long it's been, man. But I will not be picking up this vape ever again, and I will not be smoking ever again. So if you plan on quitting, don't try and rush yourself. Do it when you're ready. Do it when you feel comfortable and confident that you can actually do it. And don't be upset at yourself if you go back. I have gone back to it many times. This time I'm sure that I won't be going back because I'm doing it for the right reasons. But if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you likely will go back. Meaning if you're going to quit for someone else, or but you're not really sure of it, or if you're, quitting because, basically for someone else. Basically, you quit because someone else told you to quit. If you quit because I told you to quit, well, that's not going to work. You need to figure it out for yourself and decide for yourself, why do I really want to quit? What is so wrong with this behavior in the first place? Maybe you don't want to quit. Maybe you want to keep doing it. Well, good for you. That's your decision. And that's your life. I'm not here to preach. Although I have sounded maybe a little preachy at times today in this video. I just wanted to share my full experience of my thoughts about vaping after 10 years of vaping, 10 years of smoking. It's the ultimate drawn conclusion that I can tell you with most certainty, and then I'll end the video with this. So is it's not good. It's not healthy. It's good as a quitting that's it. It's good as a quitting smoking device, and then get off of it as soon as you possibly can. For any other reason, it's not good. All right, guys, and with that, I'll get out of here for today, and you guys all have a good day. Peace out.
'Cause I'm tired of explaining what the joke is.
This is what you asked for.